Welcome to Break the Silence, a reading for Artsakh. I'm Olivia Katranjian, the founder of the International Armenian Literary Alliance. We're honored to host this event in partnership with AGBU and the Writers for Peace Committee of PEN International. Thank you to both organizations for your support and to the team at IALA who has worked tirelessly to bring you today's program. Thank you to the writers in Artsakh who are with us to share their experiences of 9 months under siege. During the 2020 war over Artsakh, one of these writers, Siranush Sargsyan, organized a women's movement protesting the lack of intervention from international organizations. She demonstrated in Yerevan outside the American and British embassies, the EU and the UN, begging for someone to listen to her cries for help. But every time the response was the same. Artsakh is not a recognized country, and so no one would intervene. She said to me, they fight for endangered animals, but won't help our children who are being shelled in their homes. It's like we do not exist. The war was not followed by peace, and Siranush has repeated this sentiment to me as the world watched Azerbaijan use horrific intimidation tactics to force the indigenous Armenians into leaving their homes, shutting off the gas supply in freezing temperatures, leaving children unable to attend school, and violating the ceasefire by shooting at farmers harvesting grapes. It's like we do not exist. She expressed this again in these last 9 months under siege, while the world looked away as Armenians starved. The writer Germán Rojas wrote in The Traveler and His Road, every thinking Armenian is like a radio station in the middle of a storm, sending messages to distant places and receiving no answer. But we are here today to listen, to tell the writers from Artsakh we know they are human beings, breathing, loving, bleeding beings who want nothing but to be left to exist in peace. You will hear their voices, and I ask you to imagine what they could achieve, what they could create if left to exist in peace. I ask you, too, to heed our call to action. Ask your representative to co-sponsor and pass anti-blockade resolutions, write to your local and national media outlets demanding coverage of the blockade, and donate if you can. Thank you so much to our guest speakers who are here in solidarity. Your presence means so much to us. And to our host, poet, prose writer, scholar, and professor Peter Balakian. Peter is the author of many books, including the Pulitzer Prize winning poetry collection, Ozone Journal, the memoir Black Dog of Fate, winner of the PEN Allbrand Award, and The Burning Tigress, winner of the Raphael Lemkin Prize and a New York Times bestseller. Peter?
Thank you, Olivia. I'm honored to be here with all of you today. Let me say a few things. I'll read a poem, and then I will introduce very briefly our speakers. We're here today to raise support for the 120,000 Armenians trapped in their own historic province of Artsakh, also known on the map as Nagorno-Karabakh, subject to disease, famine, and blockade by the Azerbaijan government for about 9 months now. The situation has been called genocidal by Luis Moreno Campo, former ICC prosecutor, the International Association of Genocide Scholars, and other human rights specialists. Rampant corruption, arbitrary arrests, human rights violations are the norm in Azerbaijan's Aliyev dictatorship, which is a threat to democracy in the Caucasus, with Armenia as its prime target. The history of assault against the Armenian people and nation in the Caucasus and in Anatolia constitutes a pattern of what genocide scholar Irvin Staub calls a continuum of destruction, a pattern that can be seen from the time of the Turkish massacres of the 1890s through the period of the Armenian genocide of 1915, through the human rights abuses in war with Azerbaijan, with the aid of Turkey over the past several years. And because Armenian Karabakh, Artsakh, was partitioned from Armenia unjustly by Stalin with Kemal's support in the 1921-22 period, the quest for justice remains. The Armenians of Artsakh are endangered, and in the larger sense, the Armenian Republic is in need of a reliable protector, as Russia has turned its back on Armenia in many ways in recent years. Today, we gather to educate, to promote activism, to give financial support if possible, and to use our social capital to network, to contact people you know in positions of power and influence who can speak up for the crisis, and for the larger support of Armenia and Armenians in their home territory where they are under assault. Armenia is an ancient civilization of about 2,500 years. There are not many cultures that have survived for that long and have today their own independent republic. Armenia's contributions to world culture are many, in arts and sciences, in literature and architecture, visual art, decorative arts, technology, business, and commerce. Armenia needs support and protection more than ever, and we all need to help make that happen. I'm delighted to introduce many fine writers today. I'm grateful to Olivia, who is the founder of International Armenian Literary Association, to AGBU, to Writers for Peace Committee of PEN International for making this happen. And thank you all for being here to be part of this struggle, which is ongoing, to be part of it in any way that works for you. A poem to open up what will be more readings today, of course, by many fine writers. This poem is called What's Up? In Armenian, Inch Gachiga means what is, what isn't, or in plain speak, what's up? When I say it, I mean, I'll see you again in Yerevan. The pink tufa will hurl through the window. Let me read that line over. The pink tufa sun will hurl through the window. We'll sit on the balcony overlooking the square. I'll stare at the alphabet I struggle to read and pour it like sugar into my black tea. The geraniums on the sill are always red puckers. The mulberry jam always spreads like an orchard. There is always a faint moon in the early morning sky. Sometimes it's a Turkish scimitar, sometimes a drone from Baku, sometimes a swoosh from Apollo's chariot, sometimes Armenian elixir from a waxing curve. Either way, it hangs there, appearing, disappearing. What's up? Chiga, all gone, my father would say, when the strudel was finished, dessert was over. It was time to work. In the dark, the TV off, flavors on the tongue faded into early hours of dawn. And when I looked up, there was a faint moon. I will see you in Yerevan soon. We'll walk again up the stony paths at Sevan to the church and half-crumbling roof. The lake is always a turquoise stone, flashing. What is, what isn't? When we walk the mountain villages up north, there's a TV dish hanging off a roof of half a house where chickens wander in and out. A couple is smoking by the front door. Inch gachiga, I say. They smile, some teeth are missing. The gap between wind and rain blows through their eyes. What is, what isn't? I'm here, far away. It's early morning. The moon is waxing. Get to work, I hear my father say. I'd like to introduce Lika Zakaryan, journalist and writer from Stepanakert.
Hello, everybody. I want to first say thanks the Armenian literary organization for organizing this event. Thanks for giving the opportunity for speaking up for Artsakh. and for raising this awareness and raising this issue. And I'm very happy and proud to be among these talented people to share some work we do for this common purpose. And I'm going to read an article which was written nearly 1 month ago. It's an article about how blockade creates and recreates, reminds people of the collective traumas they have, because that's not the first time people of Artsakh are going through this. At 5:30 a.m. on August 2nd, people in Stepanakert were woken up by the sound of gunfire. Everyone thought that it was the Azerbaijani shooting, but it turned out that it was a local Armenian man who was drunk and had gone to Renaissance Square, where the president's office is located, and started shooting into the air with his hunting weapon, yelling, "Give me food for my children." At first, many residents were angry with him, indignant. How could he scare people like that, especially in this kind of tense situation? But then they supported him, even expressed empathy, saying, "Imagine the state of the person must have reached to come to this. Probably his child went to bed hungry." No, being unable to find food for his child doesn't mean he is a bad father. There is simply no food. Nagorno-Karabakh has been under blockade since December 2022. Throughout this time, it has been getting tougher. Initially, at the start of the blockade, people there were quite positive. They said things like, "We cannot be broken, we will survive, we'll get through, even without food." People tried to approach the situation with humor and even began to look for pluses in the blockade, such as no cigarettes, men don't smoke, healthy lifestyle, no cars, the air is clean and people walk, healthy lifestyle, no sweets, no oil, both fried and sweet are harmful. We don't throw away leftover bread, but turn it into croutons for bad days. We saw the true faces of friends. Even all sorts of rich people were seen in queues for tomatoes and bread. But complete isolation and the lack of everything that is considered basic for a person and for society to function changes things. Even though people are still determined to endure, they are mentally and physically exhausted. The blockade dominates every corner of their existence, their conversation, everyday life, thoughts, problems, even their dreams. Everything is about blockade. It's as if people have become part of the blockade and don't even remember what it was like when you could go to the store and buy everything you need and want. When you could spoil your child with a piece of chocolate. You could cook your family's favorite dishes and not just what you can find. Children have forgotten the taste of sweets. There is not even any sugar. People have commented that even when they eat, they can't seem to get full, as if their bones themselves are hungry. Perhaps it's because they eat what is available, but they don't get enough vitamins, or the body requires a lot more to stock up for even worse times. According to doctors, the number of miscarriages in Karabakh has increased threefold since before the blockade. They attribute this mainly to the lack of vitamins and insufficient food in general, especially fruits and vegetables. Perhaps there are deep psychological factors that only a specialist can analyze. Of course, many residents are already familiar with the situation since they have gone through this before, but others have only heard about it and are now encountering it for the first time during this blockade. From childhood, I remember that my grandmother used to buy 2-3 bottles of sunflower, several kilograms of flour, and sack of potatoes at one time. When I asked why she buys these items in such large quantities when we don't have enough money for so many other things, she replied that we never know what's in the store for us, and that the war could start any day. She recalled that during the First Karabakh War, Karabakh was blocked until the Lachin corridor was liberated. In those days, people shared a piece of bread with each other, and always paid tribute to flour from which it was possible to bake bread at worst. Today, people line up for bread from morning to night for 2 loaves of bread for the whole family and return home empty-handed. As a young father of 2 children writes, to stand in line for bread until 2 in the morning and not even get any, none left. Then to come back 3 hours later to stand in line again from 5 to 7 in the morning, and at 7 a.m. the electricity was cut. And so again to return home empty-handed. This is Stepanakert, our days. Everything repeats itself. Devastation and famine of the 90s have become today's reality in Karabakh. However, there are differences. Today, the residents of Karabakh use Facebook to survive. They post about what they have to offer or exchange it for food. Since there is no fuel due to the blockade, taxis and public transport are not working, and people are forced to go on foot on a long journey in search of food. One single mother from a small village could not feed her children, so she got up early in the morning to walk to the neighboring village in the hope of finding something. The children woke up, waited a couple of hours for their mother, and decided to go to look for her. After searching for her under the scorching sun for several hours, they got tired and decided to rest in a car which had been abandoned due to lack of fuel. The children fell asleep in the car, and there they died of dehydration and weakness in the overheated car. I don't know who the children that survived this ordeal will become. Children living under blockade for 8 months have forgotten what normal life is. This has become the norm for them. Will they grow up just like our grandparents? Will they buy oil, flour, and potatoes in reserve? Will they always be grateful for opportunities to read in the evening with under the light, to bathe in hot water, to eat as much as until they are full, to eat whatever they want? Every day they see the Russian peacekeepers' helicopter flying overhead, full of food, but not for them. I don't know if this will harden them or make them better, more humane. And not only the children, but also adults. How will each of them cope with these traumas, and how will they continue to live with this burden and what they have endured? And neither do I know how those who are conducting this humiliating experience on people will live.
Thank you. It's now my pleasure to introduce Lusine Vanyan, writer from Artsakh.
I'm very honored to be hosted by Olivia and you, Dr. Balakian, and I want to write a piece that sums up some of my blockade experience. Last January, a month into the blockade, my mom and I stalked the streets of Stepanakert. We navigated through people with frozen faces, vacant wrinkled stairs, or piercing shrewd looks, wrapped in scarves and stooped in coats. They talked about the much-awaited import of some food. Walking through the central street is like listening to local radio broadcast. People's loud conversations will tell you all the news. We picked into stores for food and supplies, but the stores were empty. We were elated to find some dry apricots, but fresh produce had become something coveted and could only be occasionally obtained in long, garrulous and rowdy lines once or twice a month. Hence, my mom's raw food diet was interrupted, and she relied on some fresh pomegranates and pumpkins already breaking bad. Still, she managed to cook tasty meals out of nothing, to have me and my siblings over for the evening. Her hot pilav with some dry plums, mint, and pieces of quince was the pleasant conclusion of my strenuous workday as a translator and the classes I taught through the blockouts. But as the blockade reached its peak, my mom grew weaker and started fading. Her skin was increasingly pale and she gasped for air. She took a blood test, and when she received the results, the doctor immediately sent her to the intensive care unit. After work, I called the doctor and asked to see her. He told me, your mom's hemoprotein level is critical, so she may die anytime, but you cannot see her now. Then he mumbled, how many times do I have to tell people to observe the visiting hours? I froze on the green bench of the hospital lobby, and later the doctor showed mercy and let me see my mother for a few minutes. You need to donate blood for your mother, he said, because we've already given her 4 packets of plasma and our bank is almost empty. My mom was on the 5th floor of the Republican Health Center in a glass-walled tower facing the mountains. The emerald green mountains had acquired some fantastic tinge of green, turning ocean blue and smoothly merging with the azure of the sky. The sky... Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
The sky enmeshed with the mountains similar to the ivy lines that entangled her. Lying with open veins, she was surrounded with dying and conscious people. And my mom was like Artsakh, severely ill and depleting, striped up her rivers and nooks, with her sons and daughters facing uncertainty. Little can be done for my mom. So after her friends and relatives' initial emotional response to learning of her illness, people accepted the idea of her demise and washed their hands off her. For some, Artsakh is a nuisance, and they secretly long to be rid of it. Others are reluctant to step into the game of geopolitical interest and with so many powers. And very few believe she will be able to recover, so it's worth trying to take practical steps to save her. I keep asking myself, why is Artsakh so alienated even from her closest kin, Armenia, when she is in the ER and needs the most? Maybe because she was unable to build healthy communication with others, did not build bridges between the people or with the world beyond Artsakh and Armenia. She tolerated the squandering of her resources, both human and natural, so she needed more love and a deeper commitment to her nation, like the good old days. But though severely wounded, Artsakh is vital for us. It shapes our identity and gives us a sense of belonging that we will never find anywhere else. All day long, I waited for the 5-minute consultation with the intensive care therapist. He said, there is not much to be done with your mom since the operation she needs is unfeasible. She needs complex surgery in Yerevan. She needs specialized intervention, but bureaucracy and the blockade have made it almost impossible to get there. But the good news is she is not dying yet. And this made me so happy that I was able to enjoy the few minutes I was allowed to spend with her. It's the same way I feel towards our fading Artsakh. I find joy in my classes and discussions with my students, chats with my colleagues and friends, scarce meals, and the sobriety of our sunsets. Our meals are mostly cereals with some slices of pumpkin or amaranth spiced with vinegar and some seasonal fruit from my grandfather's trees. In summer, it seemed that my grandfather was feeding me invisibly with mulberries. One handful of mulberries made me feel as satisfied as I used to feel after a complete lunch. The idea of our dining with a bunch full of berries delighted our yoga guru, who is an advocate of pure food diet. However, for the most part, fresh food is only available to people who have gardens or live in villages. In town, produce is hard to find and is sold at preposterous prices. Once, as I walked along an abandoned football field to work, I eavesdropped at the tete-a-tete of 2 boys collecting berries. One of them said, I'm going to sell the berries and take the earnings to my mom. She lost her job and last night I heard her sobbing in the kitchen. A woman who also overheard the boys talking shed a tear and stuck a handful of coins in the boy's pocket. Along the road, she told me she left her village for good when the Azeris entered, and she doesn't care for the farm she lost, but only for 3 graves of her loved ones that the Azeris are in the process of destroying with bulldozers. Since mid-June, when the Lusine corridor was completely sealed off, even to humanitarian aid, students and teaching faculty have been famished. As the blockade tightened, the university management said to the faculty that they would provide coupons for eggs. The eggs never arrived. Then there were rumors that instead we would be given milk, 5 liters each, like the government workers. On the appointed day, professors flocked to the university campus with 5-liter containers. Though the classes have started, the halls were half empty, since students from regions could not join due to lack of fuel. Soon the professors were told that the milk would be given out on Friday. And when the milk arrived on Friday, it filled only 1 liter of our 5-liter containers. I managed my own liter of milk meticulously. I curdled 400 grams, made yogurt out of the other 400, made hot chocolate with 1 spoonful of cocoa, half a spoonful of sugar, and 1 ounce of milk from the remaining 200 grams. This milk lasted us for 10 days, like the bread multiplied by Jesus. The food scarcity and the blockade trigger anxiety, depression, and psychosomatic disorders that aggravate the health problems and the already severe transgenerational trauma. Men often take this out on their families. The aggression grows due to the lack of nicotine and food for comfort eating. But this is counterbalanced with their blockade-driven cycling, riding, and walking. You can see cyclists on empty roads and crowded pavements with purebred, abandoned, and hungry dogs. On the one hand, the food limitations have bonded us and taught us to share. On the other, weaponized food aims to overwhelm us with fear and kill our hope. And if men shall not live by bread alone, Artsakh shall stand.
Thank you very much. And the witness we're hearing from Artsakh is powerful for the rest of us outside. I'm happy to introduce Chris McCabe, poet, editor, novelist, head librarian at London's National Poetry Library.
Thank you, Peter. Hello, everyone. I'm going to read 2 poems in solidarity with the people of Artsakh. The first is a poem about isolation and resilience, and it's called Living Like This for Days. Been living like this for days, same thoughts, same things, been prowling these floors looking for a loophole, been raging in my mind and stuck behind glass, precise, like a cicada dehydrating in prayer, been watching my son become trapped in his loops, like a circus artist practicing art in view of his critics. He's on the same wire, but hasn't learned to fall, been learning how to watch without knowing what to say, seeing the extra minute of sunlight make tracks across the floor each evening, gaining a centimetre more each day, been thinking of the past, how we have all lived like beatniks, even the mistakes earn their ticks, been watching the outside world as if it's a cover, been waiting for it to change, for the hours to start to race like untrained horses through the streets, been learning new words each day, wondering when I'll use them, been trying to read, been trying to listen, even tried to write something down, stepped into the shadow song of a blackbird, met my mum in the park, walked through the graveyard, been around this way before, and know I could fall, and know I could pull through, watching my dreams instead of the news for some kind of prophecy, been wondering who will be, when this is over. Part of my work as an editor and librarian is in collecting, gathering and activating for poetry in endangered languages. And there are many reasons for why languages become endangered. One of those, of course, is oppression. Poets, I believe, don't only offer hope as voices of resistance, they also encode their language in their writing. They encode their indigenous landscape in their writing, the local words, myths and folklore, and they capture their world to share with people and to give us a more precise understanding of the world we live in. Dialects are essentially a part of this, and I understand from conversation with Tetovic that Artsakh is one, or has one, of many Armenian dialects, and one that is highly distinct. This is very close to my heart as a person from Liverpool. We have as well a very distinct dialect and accent. And amidst these assaults that we see in Artsakh on physical safety, food that we've heard about today, and survival, these seemingly more intangible aspects of heritage are also put under threat, and poets, of course, play a huge role in highlighting this. The next poem I'd like to read is about my local dialect. It is called Scouse. It was made famous by the Beatles. More recently, the Conservative government in the United Kingdom targeted the city of Liverpool in the 1980s. They called this managed decline. It was a euphemism for cutting off resources to the city. And I would like to dedicate this poem called Scouse from my city and from the people of Liverpool to the people of Artsakh. Scouse. First, our voice boxes were removed to our noses. The grey quilts of ice and storm over the Irish Sea gave us colds, which stayed as the seasons changed. Our children copied the adenoidal tang of how we talked, then their children, then theirs. It was our homage to the Irish who gave us this, landing starved in our port to keep our pubs open and women satisfied, which is to mean in laughter. Then the elected came like Genghis Khan to finish us off. We fought like the Norse in a fang of redness, fought with our voices that no longer sounded Lancashire, that no longer sounded English when pushed to it. We were 1/3 Irish, 1/3 Welsh, and 1/3 phlegm. We spat out this thing which made us stand out, which separated us from them. We called it Scouse. Solidarity to the people in Artsakh, and back to you, Peter.
Chris, thank you greatly for bringing what poetry does, excavate and witness and find layers of threads and connections. Thank you very much. And now I'm introducing Siranush Sargsyan, Stepanakert-based journalist.
Thank you. It's really incredible to be with such a talented people. At least in this way, we can somehow break this blockade. To be honest, I don't have much hope. Like after this event, the launching corridor will be open and allowing me to reach Yerevan to hug my mother. Tomorrow, my morning will be likely coffeeless again. And I might struggle to find the bread. However, this event holds immense importance to making my voice and voices of these women about whom I'm talking to be heard. Breaking the silence is crucial, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. And since we have problem with electricity and because of power outages and connection usually is interrupted, I recorded my piece, so I hope you will enjoy it. Thank you.
The last time I found laundry detergent was by accident in a beauty salon. My hairdresser Inga asked why I often wear dark colors. I said I don't have laundry detergent. She didn't have much herself, but she gave me a handful of what she had and half a liter of cooking oil. 2 weeks before the blockade, when I went to get my hair cut, she was concerned. She had decided to order a new hairdryer from Yerevan because she was afraid that the road will be closed. A hairdresser can never have too many hairdryers, she said, since the hairdryer fed her family. 2 weeks later, the Lachin corridor, the only road connecting Artsakh to Armenia, was closed. The blockade has been going on for 9 months. Even with a new hairdryer, Inga can't work without interruption. The gas supply here has been cut for more than 200 days and electricity is intermittent. There is almost nothing, Inga said. Now we have to ask customers to bring hair dye, shampoo and even towel with them. We cannot wash towels without water and detergent. The water supply has been disrupted because of power outages, and the simple act of hair washing has become a logistical nightmare. Salon workers have to carry heavy buckets of water from a government tank and heat it by sticking an electricity wire into the buckets. Boginya, meaning goddess in Russian, one of the oldest beauty salons in the center of Stepanakert, works with the slogan, "The whole world under your feet." Yet there is no hustle and bustle in salon. There is a bit of excitement when electricity comes back on after several hours. The number of customers has decreased. Nara Karapetyan is 15 years old. She has been working as a hairdresser for 35 years and has started in a basement in Stepanakert, working through the collapse of the Soviet Union and the First Nagorno-Karabakh War. She said, "At that time, there was no money. We did the work for food. Now there is a money, but no food. Maybe it was harder, more dangerous. We couldn't get out from the basement. But we didn't feel humiliated like now. We understand what the deprivation were for. But now," as she described the hairdresser day in the blockade, has no beginning and no end. There is neither night nor day. Our day begins at 3 o'clock in the morning in the bread lines. Early in the morning, if you manage to buy bread, you take the children home and rush to the beauty salon. Of course, we also follow the electricity schedule that dictates our lives now. In the evening, we go home looking for food. What is edible, what we come across, we take it home, she said. There is still some hair dye in the salon, but only the lightest and red tones are left. Customers already know that they should come armed. I have a client who said it's better for me to be hungry but well taken care of, said Anahit. She has noticed that women's mood improves after dyeing and styling their hair. There are also women who rarely come to the salon during the siege. The reason, according to Anahit, is time, much of which is now spent in queues. Anush, one of the salon clients, said, "We are deprived of even this small pleasure. Everything is almost finished. I don't even have hair dye or shampoo at home. There is no food, so should we deprive ourselves of beauty too?" War veteran Miss Nelly defended her right to come to beauty salon. In the early 90s, during the First War, she cut and took care of her hair herself at home. In 2020, during the 44-day war, her hair was well groomed even in the bomb shelter. On November 2, before the war ended, I dyed my hair again, she said. It was a way of fighting and resisting. During the blockade, the breaks in the beauty salon have become coffeeless, but the discussions are intense. The topics are diverse. Women talk about exchanging what items they have at home, cooking without the necessary ingredient. Here you can also find out which village goods are available in which store in which district. And there is a topic during which the conversation is particularly inflamed, in which both hairdresser and customers become participants. That is a question of the uncertain future of Artsakh.
Thank you again for more witness from Ground Zero. Pleasure to introduce Nathalie Handal, French-American poet, playwright, translator, and editor who is originally of a Palestinian family from Bethlehem.
Thank you all so much. Tonight, I want to offer two prayers, poems. Prayer. The Armenian highline opens, and I praise the light covering the river valleys. Praise the hum from Utek to the Kura River in the late afternoons. Praise our shak step in our bodies. Praise the monasteries and tombs, the churches and chapels, the 3,000 Armenian inscriptions of these lands. Once in Van's Kazar, my grandmother told me in a dream, there was a genocide, Sing. Not long ago in Yerevan, I collected your faces. Praise Palm Sunday to keep the attackers far. Praise the willow branch flowers that keep our treasures and cry. Praise Var Davar, pour water, let water cleanse, let the soul sit on the balcony sing. Praise the grapes between our dreams, the pomegranates and apricot trees. Praise the old days and the future days. Praise the children who never got to speak, their sorrow, their echoes. Let silence break. We will not forget you. You will live again. You will praise again. Praise the koshari moving our bodies and dance, dance, and let death forget. Let the Armenian duduk sing your names. And the second poem I want to read as a Bethlehemite who's also part of the Armenian community in Palestine. This is for all those who can't find breath and cannot live. And may these borders and vanish, and may they all find life and breath again. Even, nothing is even. Even this line I'm writing, even this line I'm waiting in, waiting for permission to enter the country, the house, the room. Nothing is even. Even now that laws have been drawn and peace is discussed on high tables, and even if all was said to be even, I would not believe, for even I know that nothing is even. Not the trees, the flowers, not the mountains or the shadows. Our nature is not even. So why even try to get even? Instead, let us find an even better place and call it even. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for continuing the thread of poetry that's kind of meandering through the texts of witness. It's a beautiful synergy. Now I'm pleased to introduce Syuzanna Margaryan, economist from Artsakh, who is also a journalist.
Good evening. Thank you so much for this chance. I'm honored to participate in this event. because this is a great opportunity for us to raise our voices. My story is about an Artsakhian family who was Khachatrians, and the story of a young woman, Ruzan, who has to raise her children, her 3 children alone because her husband is now in a rehabilitation center in Yerevan. Major Landrush Khachatryan, a former battalion commander, Nagorno-Karabakh Republic Defense Army, is one of the many wounded in the 44-day war of 2020 provoked by Azerbaijan. Khachatryan, who had received an open brain injury after the stabilization of his condition in 2021, was transferred to Moscow for rehabilitation treatment and later to the Soldiers' House Rehabilitation Center in Yerevan. 3 years after the war, the commander is still unresponsive. Doctors assess the condition as stable but critical. The family, which has not yet overcome the consequences of the war, has to face the difficulties caused by the blockade of Artsakh. The family hasn't seen the father for 8 months until December 12, 2022. Ruzan, along with his daughter, her daughter Nane, kept traveling to Yerevan and back to see Landrush in the hospital. But as a result of blockade, the family couldn't see the father of the family for 9 months now. Ruzan took it upon herself even to learn driving and obtained a driver's license to handle her husband's car left in Stepanakert. She navigates the responsibilities of caring for her 2 school-aged children and newborn while tending to her family's needs. For 3 years, 9-year-old Noray, 6-year-old Narek, and 3-year-old Nane are growing up away from their father. The boys remember him well, but due to their young age, they might not fully grasp the seriousness of their father's health condition. Regardless, they eagerly anticipate his recovery and homecoming. From time to time, the kids start talking about how dad will get better and come back home. They even have this idea that he might need a wheelchair, but he will still be with them, shares Ruzan. I have to mention that about 3,900 people are now separated from their families due to the blockade, and among them there are 500 children. Existing problems have been multiple due to the blockade. Under siege, we face the same difficulties as everyone else. Basic foods like fruits, vegetables, and the kids' favorite snacks are scarce. Now transportation is also an issue. Fuel is scarce, making it impossible to use a car, and public transportation is inactive. Walking Nane to kindergarten every day is tough, especially in the summer heat. When electricity is available, Ruzan strives to cook for the children and heat water for bathing purposes. The daily life of family, like everyone else, in the conditions of blockade, passes in queues that have already become normal. In recent days, there are also queues for bread in Artsakh, and Ruzan and her children also have to wait in queues for hours for daily bread. Narek says that they try to go to the bakery with the eldest brother so that the mother does not have to stand in the sun for hours with little Nane. Ruzan noticed that the hotel where they currently live provides a meal, so she hopes that the children will surely have bread once a day. Now Ruzan's main concern is to ensure that her children have enough to eat every day, and if possible to move to Yerevan with them. Who knows how many months my husband will live. At least during that time, the children will get to see and recognize their father, even in that condition, she says, ending the conversation. And this is a story of just one of the thousands of divided families who are now struggling under the blockade, hoping that the situation will soon stabilize and families will finally be reunited. Thank you so much.
Thank you greatly for your witness. It's a pleasure to introduce Germán Rojas, Chilean poet who suffered exile from 1974 to 1990, chair of the Writers for Peace Committee of PEN International, and vice president of PEN Chile.
Well, many thanks, dear Peter, for giving me the floor and for conducting this event in such a gentle manner, mixing together poetry and testimony by people, which is, I really appreciate that. I would like to thank also Olivia Katandjan, founder of the International Armenian Literary Alliance, for the invitation she extended to me in order to be present today. I would like to begin by saying that it is a great honor for me as chair of the Writers for Peace Committee of PEN International to be present as a partner of the organizing institutions of this event, because it allows us to bring our words of solidarity to the entire Armenian population of the unrecognized Republic of Artsakh, known to the world as Nagorno-Karabakh, where all civilians are at risk of death because of the Azerbaijan government's deliberate and increasingly inhuman actions to rid Artsakh of Armenians. We must speak out clearly. A genocide is being committed. We strongly condemn the government of Azerbaijan for its unacceptable policy of ethnic cleansing in the region. PEN International's position of rejection of discrimination on the basis of race has been clear and consistent since the rise of Nazism to power in Germany, which led to German PEN being expelled from our organization in 1933. We writers are not invited to participate in the political agreements between countries and international organizations in which the solution of international conflicts is discussed, often with exasperating slowness. But we can, from civil society, raise our voice, which has a tremendous influence due to the ethical weight that gives us the fact that we base our words on permanent values such as peace, truth, justice, and freedom of expression. On this occasion, I would like to extend my word of solidarity, containment, and unrestricted support to the writers, poets, and journalists, men and women who live in the Republic of Artsakh and who have been isolated from the world for almost 9 months now, and who often feel abandoned as if they did not exist, as Olivia said. Being a Chilean myself, I would like to say to you something in the words of the well-known Chilean poet Pablo Neruda, taken from the Canto 12, The Heights of Machu Picchu. Show me your blood and your furrow. Say to me, here I was punished, because again a gem was dull, or because the earth failed to give the stone or the corn in time. Point out to me the rock on which you stumbled, the good they used to crucify your body. I come to speak for your silent mouth. Give me the struggle, the iron, the volcanoes. Come quickly on my veins and to my mouth. Speak through my words and through my blood. That's the end of that poem by Neruda. Well, yes, they want to silence you, but they will not be able to do it because you will continue to raise your voice and fill blank pages in defense of your rights and those of your people. And I want to assure you that you will also continue to speak through the mouths of all of us, writers who love you and who make your indomitable struggle our own. Let me finish my intervention reading a short poem of my own titled Letter, which I dedicated to the great Uruguayan writer Mario Benedetti, a poem which speaks of the house I left behind in my country after being forced into exile. And now I want to dedicate this poem to all Armenians living in exile. Today, it has reached my hands the letter in which you tell me with sorrow that you should sell the house where you grew up with your parents. This sounds like a dream to me. In my life, I have lived in 56 houses, including the jail. I could have loved to have a house where I could have grown up with my parents. I could have liked to have a backyard and a fig tree. But when I was expelled from Chile, I had no choice but to imitate Mario Benedetti and spin through strange lands with a brick in my pocket to show the world what my home was like. Just a brick, without doors, no windows, without a backyard and without a fig tree, without a corner where hacks could be welcome. Many, many thanks.
Germán, many thanks to you for bringing your voice and Pablo Neruda's from Chile to us. And now I would like to introduce Arda Haratunyan, Strategic Communications Advisor, Educator, and the Assistant Secretary of the AGBU Central Board of Directors. Arda, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And on behalf of AGBU, I want to thank all of you, and I want to thank everyone who registered and is listening to today's very special event. So thank you to IALA. Thank you to the Writers for Peace Committee of PEN International for your support. Germán did a very good job of summarizing what is going on there. And I think everyone who's listening hears the pain, the struggle, everything that's going on. So I'm not going to go into all the history and whatever, but the context is so important. Artsakh is not an Armenian problem. What is happening in Artsakh is a global problem, and it's a problem for humanity. And I am naive enough to think that words, writers, thinkers, people like you who spoke today can go a long way in solving this, because words have the power to help. We know words can hurt, sometimes humiliate, sometimes humble, but they encourage and they bring people together. So on behalf of AGBU, I'll say we were glad we could give the platform this event, because we do think in the end, words are power and information is power. So, I want to thank personally everyone who spoke: Lika, Lusine, Chris, Siranush, Nathalie, Syuzanna, Germán. Unfortunately, Ilya, for certain circumstances, could not be with us. But the information you provide, especially those of you behind the border, I think those are incredibly helpful. So throughout the event today, the host has put action items, things that every single one of you can do, every single one of us can do. First, the most important thing is being informed. So I am going to strongly encourage everyone to visit civilnet.am and evnreport.com. And this is in addition to your consumption of news. I know everyone who's joined is informed, well informed. So you read news, see news, and I think most of us are seeing more and more coverage of the humanitarian catastrophe and the genocide underway. But these two sources I told you about are so invaluable to staying informed. AGBU.org has a page dedicated as a resource of information on Artsakh. IALA on their website, in the information you received for today, has specific action points. Whether you want to write to members of Congress or members of Parliament in the EU, your local governments, the more people are learning about this, the more people are speaking out. And again, this is not an Armenian problem. This is a problem for everybody. So it is, on the one hand, tragic what we're seeing. On the other hand, the coming together of people for this issue it's heartwarming because people recognize that what happens there can happen anywhere, and it is happening other places. So I will simply say that we ask you to be informed. We ask you to be engaged. We ask you to please take action. The media is critical, and a very important point that we are trying to encourage people is not to be harshly critical of journalists and things we don't like reading, but to be constructively critical and to have it always be based in fact, because, and this is an important point, everyone knows the difference between information, misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. The enemies of good in the world practice in intentional malinformation and disinformation. It's not a mistake. And we are all voices of truth. And those of you with the talent to write and the words, that can be a very constructive piece of this. So, you know, Olivia mentioned at the beginning, also, if you find it in your heart to donate, there's so many ways to help. So we, of course, ask for that. But each of us has so much power in our hands. And we ask those of you with your words and the magic of the power of your literary skills to keep doing what you're doing so well. And we will continue doing what we can do. So again, thank you to IALA, and thank you to the Writers for Peace Committee of Penn for helping us do this. And thank you, Peter, for leading today's direct discussion.